In the 19th and 20th century, there was a disease called tuberculosis. This disease was a deadly one, in which it killed thousands by attacking their immune systems. Tuberculosis was a coughing disease, in which you would cough and spit blood up because you were basically drowning your lungs with fluids, which also made it very hard to breathe. Tuberculosis was thought to have originated from parts of Africa in the 19th century. In 1900, New Mexico became what people called a safe haven because of their high and dry climate, along with being able to hold a lot more people in their sanitariums. New Mexico had a lot of sanitariums in which only the wealthy were to live and the people that could afford it. Their population consisted of mostly Mexicans, and they were thought to be immune to the deadly disease because there were very few documented cases that existed among them. Everyone started coming to New Mexico, which caused the population to skyrocket, and there started to be overcrowding along with no beds for the sick patients. Around 1910, the health inspectors started finding cases that tuberculosis did exist among the Mexicans and was becoming a fast problem. Mexicans believed that they could heal themselves and didn't need help from doctors. When citizens found out that the Mexicans weren't immune to tuberculosis like they thought, Mexicans started being exposed to spitting on the sidewalks and in other parts of New Mexico. The workforce played a huge role in tuberculosis among the Mexicans, and that was because Mexicans were known to have the worst jobs and would be stuck right in the middle of sick patients that were dealing with this deadly disease. Mexicans mainly worked in sanitariums as maids or nurses' assistants and in any other job that entitled them to have frequent contact with tuberculosis patients. The industrial population also allowed Mexicans to get the deadly disease because they worked in factories side by side, sharing everyone's germs. During the early 1900s, Mexicans were viewed as people who don't belong in the US. The only race that was viewed as okay during this time was the whites, because they had money and weren't viewed as terrible people. Benjamin Goldberg shows this in greater detail in his quote. When the railroad was being built, people found out that it was helping spread tuberculosis everywhere. But it wasn't necessarily the iron, but the silica that was produced that caused Mexicans to develop tuberculosis and spread it. Philip King Brown shows this in better detail in his quote. If you were diagnosed with tuberculosis back in the 19th century, you were most likely going to die because there was no cure for it. Until this day, you can still die from this disease if it isn't caught quick enough by doctors.